This is such a pretty salad. I literally just poured it out of the bowl and this is how good it looks. Today we are making Mediterranean chopped salad and you will not believe how delicious it is. Hey there, I'm Sam from Bites of Wellness. Come cook with me. The first part of making this Mediterranean chopped salad is going to be to just simply make the dressing. I'm going to go ahead and make it in the bottom of the bowl because less dishes is always better. But if you want to make this separate, you can just make it in whatever little bowl you want to use. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. You could also use lemon juice, but I really prefer the flavor of the red wine vinegar. A little bit of olive oil. I like a 2 parts vinegar to 1 part olive oil ratio. But if you don't like things super tangy, use 2 tablespoons of the olive oil as well. To emulsify or to convince the oil and the vinegar to come together, we are going to use my friend Dijon mustard. You don't need a ton, but what this does is it makes the oil and the water essentially bind together and become thick and creamy. So don't skip the vinegar or the mustard or you are not going to have a very thick and creamy dressing. And then because this is the easiest dressing ever, I'm going to add some Italian seasoning, salt, and oregano. Now the oregano really helps punch up that Greek or Mediterranean flavor, so I like to add extra even though there's already some in the Italian seasoning. And all you have to do is stir this up. Just want it to be stirred enough that it's all flavorful so that as you start adding ingredients to this, everything's going to taste the same. We're going to quickly chop up all the veggies that we need. This is a very, very veggie-packed salad, so there's a lot of chopping, but it'll go quick and put some music on or do whatever you love. So we've got a cucumber here. I like to just take the end off. Now I do have a quick tip with this. The cucumber is going to be soaking in this dressing for quite a while, so you don't want to make super thin cuts. It'll end up getting watery and kind of disappear in the salad. You want thicker chunks of cucumber for this specific salad. So we're going to cut it in half, and then I personally like to just make chunks like this. See, they're actual bite-sized pieces. You don't want to have super thin baby cuts. What I think about is I like to use English cucumbers for this, and that is because they do not have super big seeds in them. If you're using just a regular cucumber, go ahead and use the back of the spoon and kind of scrape out those seeds before you get to chopping because no one wants to eat a bunch of seeds. Next up is our tomatoes. I'm using cherry tomatoes. You could also, or actually these are probably grape. I'm using grape tomatoes today. I can't really tell the difference between the two, but there's a difference. But you just want to cut these into bite-sized pieces, whatever that looks like. If all you have is like Roma or whatever, just chop them up into chunks. It's fine. One thing I love about this salad is that it actually tastes better if it sits in the fridge for a couple of hours. So you could do all this prep ahead, especially for like a cookout or a barbecue. You could have all of this done the morning of, and then you just go to the fridge and get your salad out when you're ready to serve to everyone. So you're not slaving away in the kitchen the whole time. Everybody kind of has a different idea on how to cut a bell pepper, but this is my go-to way. I'm going to turn it upside down so that the stem is facing the countertop. You just want to look for where the curvature or the bell of the pepper is. You're going to take your knife and you're just going to follow it along for the first one. And then once you're there, now you can see that white pith inside that no one wants. So now you're just going to follow along again so that the pith stays inside and your pepper comes right off. We're just going to keep doing that, go around. Anytime you see it, you're just going to go around it. And then the last one's kind of the hardest to get around, but I just like to cut around one. And then just got to cut around the other one and chop the bottom. So now we just got to chop that pepper up. So Dave made a comment while I'm chopping all this. Wow, that's a lot of chopping. And yes, it's a lot of chopping. But there's no lettuce or anything like that in this salad. So the bulk of the salad is from all those veggies that we have to chop. So like I said, just put some music on or do something fun while you're doing it. Last thing that we have to chop here is parsley. I'm using flat leaf parsley. Grew this in the garden, so it's extra big and beautiful. Tip with parsley is that you don't want to use the thick stems like this. You just want to use kind of the leaves, but if you're getting some of these thin stems here, that's totally fine. They're edible, they're delicious, they have just as much flavor. This is kind of hard to manage. You just have all this parsley everywhere, so I like to use like the ball method where you pretty much just kind of like fold everything onto itself and you're kind of making like a cigar out of everything. You just want to kind of make it as tight as you can so that as you go through and chop, it's a lot more manageable. See how we kept it nice and tight there, so it's easier to chop. As you get to the end, be careful. And I just like to kind of rotate it all and go through it one more time. But I do that with basil, I do that with parsley, cilantro, anything like that. And then you've got a good healthy chop on all of that without chasing your knife around the board 100 times. So hopefully that's helpful. I know you haven't seen this in a while, but it's quite beautiful. We've got lots of color here. The last thing that we're gonna add, and this is really to make this more of a hearty salad, is to add a can of chickpeas. You could also use white beans. You could use chicken instead if you wanted to. A lot of times I like to make this with pasta instead, or pasta in addition. Really yummy. Quinoa would be great too. But we just want to think about making this a little bit heartier. So we've got that. And then here are some of the other Mediterranean influences. I've got Kalamata olives. They're going to add a salty bite. They're super briny. If you love olives, you'll love it. If you don't like olives, please just leave them out. Don't force yourself to eat olives. And I did myself a favor and just bought them already sliced, but if you're using the whole olives, just chop them up a little. And then I've got some capers here too. If capers aren't something that you're like necessarily familiar with, they have that same briny flavor, which means that they're kind of salty and bright. If you don't like olives, you may not like capers, but give them a try. But they're a fun little ingredient, and they are definitely a big Mediterranean influence. So here's the fun part. We're just going to stir. And we're going to stir for like a minute or two because we want to get that dressing well incorporated onto everything, get all of the flavors. So I'm going to tell you a very honest truth, right off the bat, doesn't have a ton of flavor. But after about an hour or 2 hours in the fridge, all of the flavor from the dressing starts seeping into all these veggies, and the flavor is so much better. So can you serve this right away? Yes, of course. Is it better to wait? I kind of think so, but just a heads up for you, so you're not like, oh, this isn't the best. Give it a little bit of time. Remember, we chopped the cucumbers up a little bit thicker. So I'm going to put this in the fridge for a couple of hours, and then it's time to enjoy it. At the risk of getting parsley in my teeth, I am going to give this a quick taste test. I got an olive, which I would argue is the best part. It's so good. It's fresh. It's delicious. That dressing that we made in the beginning just kind of coats everything. Super easy to make. I love having this on hand, especially when I don't really know what else to cook. So if you are like me and love super healthy, delicious recipes just like this one, make sure you hit that follow button and come find me on your favorite social media. Until then, happy cooking. What's up? Pause, stop, collaborate, and listen. Okay.